Line's good.
Never on.
Whoa.
Hard. Hard,
Come on, Brent. Line's good. Got real close. The hair high, right? Try and hit 2/3.
Have they saved it for her? Yes, they have.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome to Game of Stones. This is Scott coming at you from my hotel room in Kingston. A little bit of a different show tonight. I took a break after the game, came back to the hotel room trying to get a quieter atmosphere. Sean, still a little bit under the weather, has gone back to Ottawa. Hope to hear from him tomorrow night. He's going to try and get some sleep it off, and hopefully he'll be feeling better. And he might regret being pretty sick because he missed a heck of an evening of curling tonight. Not even a question that we saw the best game of the week so far, with Newfoundland taking on Team Northern Ontario. Absolute display of curling wizardry from Brad Gushue. Northern Ontario jumps out with a pretty great shot for 4 in the first end. And you got to be thinking at that time, holy cow, this game must be over, right? I know Brad Gushue's great, but you're down 4 to Northern Ontario. They've won 3 slams in a row, former Olympic champions, all of them, even with Mark Kennedy on the team, and you got to think you don't have much of a chance. But no, right back with a 3 in the second end, and it was a lot of fun, a lot of precise shot making. We got a little more conservative the back half of the game with some blanks. Northern Ontario, pretty fortunate, I'd say, to score their 1 in the 8th end. They were coming through a hole, really narrow hole, to try and blank it. Sort of did a ricochet between the 2 guards, ended up taking 1, and I think they were still pretty happy with that. They're 1 up in the 8th end, try to force back and get the hammer tied in 9, and they almost did force in 9. Brad Gushue, I guess the thinking was, hey, I'll either be down 1 with the hammer or down 2 with the hammer, and he would rather do that than be tied and not have the hammer. So he played a pretty super thin double, makes it on the blank. The crowd goes wild, and there you go. Then in the 10th end, they're able to get their stones in the exact right position. Brad Jacobs' last shot is just like an inch not in the right spot on the nose, and it gives Brad the shot for 2, and he makes it. Understandably, after that game, I was down in the bowels of the stadium, and Brad Jacobs, he was pretty positive, but also, pretty quick to get away from the media, saying, all right, we played pretty well, and for us to have played that well and lose is tough, but there's some positives to come back from that kind of game. Elsewhere tonight, we had Team Alberta and Brendan Botcher maintain their perfect streak, albeit the hard way. They were up 6-2 at one point after the 6th end, and all credit to Team Manitoba and Jason Gunnlaugson. They really fought back, got a steal in 8, stole in 10 to tie the game, and they made Alberta throw a draw there in 11. That was a little bit tricky. So we had a question from one of our listeners, and I asked Jason about that. We had a question from one of our listeners specifically about what the strategy was there in the 10th end. Was it to try and get him to throw the draw at the end?
In 10 or 11, sorry?
In 10.
In 10. We were just looking to try and get him to play a draw, and they made some great, Kark made a bunch of great ticks, so we're just trying to do anything we can at that point. We had a good time out in a moment where we could have tried something more high risk in 11, and because the ice was getting a little funky, we were like, just make him throw, and he made it. So
yeah. So the ice was a little bit trickier today compared to
just anytime it's raining outside. There's just it's pretty darn good. Don't get me wrong. This is not a complaint at all, but it is a little bit trickier than it was yesterday, where it was perfect.
Yeah. All right, right on. Thanks.
Okay, thanks.
Another strange result from tonight was Team Ontario. John Epping came out and just didn't have it tonight. He ends the game at a 51%. He was down in the 30s for most of it. They did scratch and claw their way back, but Team New Brunswick was able to hold them off in the end. I mean, there was a shot there that could have put James Grattan in a tough spot. But, the ice was a little bit tricky tonight. John Epping said after the game it was a lot different than it had been the day before. Of course, it rained today here in Kingston pretty much most of the day, so a lot of moisture coming in on the patrons, and a little bit of, extra work to do for the ice makers there. They still did a great job. It was running pretty quick. Just maybe a little bit of frost creeping in there at the end of the game. So I actually talked to James Grattan a bit about how the game went. There was a bit of a scrum, so there's some questions from a few people. Take a listen.
You guys took it to the home team, ended their unbeaten record, and you mentioned, now you're thinking about the game that got away, but I guess you got to focus on the positives, and tonight was a big win for you guys.
Yeah, it was actually. We looked at the remaining games left in our schedule, and we knew we had to knock off either John or the wildcard team late in the week, and then hopefully play like we just did against the other two teams that we have left and mark a W on it. But yeah, you're right. It's bittersweet kind of winning that game because we were up 5-2 after 6 ends against Dunstone there the other day and let that one slip away, so that one kind of stings now.
But that says a lot about the team, too, that you come back strongly against a very good Ontario team as well, and you're in there. I mean, fate is in your hands and still in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it is, yeah, and then we talked about that actually quite a bit because it was kind of a rough one that night after that game, and we just said we can only go from here, and we felt like we played really well that game and deserved it, and why not carry that on the rest of the week.
Apart from the W tonight, I think the most important part of this game is that you closed it out too, right?
Yeah, and I think that's what those demons from the other day were still kind of floating around the back of your mind, and we played kind of a messy 10-10. We missed some easy ones there, and the flashback started coming back, and the negative stuff kept having to get pushed to the back, but it was nice to cap it off.
Attaboy, James. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Like playing under the bright lights at the Brier against these teams?
Luckily, it's I know my first one. It was many years ago, in 1997, and I was freaking out. I was 22 years old, and there was 17,000 people in the stands at the Saddle Dome in Calgary. And but this is my 13th trip here. It kind of I think that helps kind of calm the nerves in those kind of situations.
You've been a team that's known to sort of traditionally make it work later in the week. Obviously, with this new format, that's not exactly something you can do. Does that add the pressure for you?
Yeah, it adds the pressure early in the week, and that's why when I was talking about we were beaten up on Dunstone 5-2 after 6, like those kind of games sting because that was our early in the week, and to cap that off and get that W early in the week for us would have been huge because you're right, we always traditionally kind of get rolling as the week goes along.
Obviously, you're still technically in it. What do you guys do to go from here?
Just keep doing what we're doing. We've seen a lot of positives in every game, even we've had a couple tough losses, and I think after 4 ends we were winning all those games too, so we always seem to start well. We just got to maintain it, looks like we did today, kind of maintain it for 10 ends and not 6.
Real quick, was that ice any different there tonight?
Yeah, it was. I think it was because of the rain and the humidity outside. It was pretty frosty. It was patchy. It was hard to be precise out there, and I think that's when we had the lead, John's team had to be the one to be precise, and we didn't necessarily. So I think that helped us pretty bad. Yeah.
And is it easier to sort of play from ahead against?
Those sorts of and you just know that they make all the shots, right? So you just know they're not going to go away without making a noise. So, but I think the ice conditions helped us, considering that we were throwing more of the takeouts and stuff that aren't affected by the frost, and he was trying to make those precise freezes and taps, and that's tough on those conditions.
Right on. Good luck the rest of the way.
Yeah, appreciate it, man.
Cheers.
Yeah.
And lastly, there tonight, Team Kevin Koe absolutely gave Thomas Scoffin a curling lesson. They were out 6-0, 6-1 after the 5th end break. This was one of those games where you think, oh boy, do they really have to play 8 ends? But, they did. Hopefully UConn can learn something. Canada and Team Koe with a pretty easy day, 1 game, and against UConn. So they'll be back on the ice tomorrow afternoon, I believe, and look to keep that streak going. Now, a bit of a weird thing that happened today was that you had the same 8 teams playing in both the morning draw and the afternoon draw. So it was back-to-back for everybody. It's pretty fair. And then you had the other 8 teams playing tonight. So if we take a look at what happened earlier in the day, I'd say the biggest story of the day was Matt Dunstone in Saskatchewan. yesterday they had a game where they were down to New Brunswick and they managed to come back in the back half and win it. This morning they were facing British Columbia and Steve Laycock. They got up pretty good. Laycock comes back, posts a 3 in the 6th end, I think, and by the 9th end, Laycock posts a 3 and 6, steals 2 in the 7th, and then takes their 2 and 9 to be up 8-5. And Matt Dunstone pulls a little bit of magic out of wherever he was hiding it this week. Jim Cotter, a couple pretty bad misses, uncharacteristic misses, I'll say, on his last 2 shots, and Laycock had a miss there too in the 10th. That set things up for a magical shot, and I'm sure if you tune into TSN, you'll see all about this one. It might have been the play of the day, I'm not quite sure, but Matty Dunstone has a double out the back. It sort of goes around the corner, or around the horn, they call it, at the back, ends up sticking it and scoring 4. Just like an incredible reaction from the team, and who can blame them, right? I mean, they're coming off this high, and then the sort of high from last night, and then they're looking like they're going to be down in the dumps again, and then they come up with a crazy victory there over BC, and then in the afternoon draw they've got to come back. So recovering from all of that, they've got to come back and play against the Northwest Territories and Jamie Koe. They don't have as much of a trouble with this one. Pretty soundly beat them 6-2. I did get a chance to talk to Braeden Moskowy a little bit after that one.
So Braeden, I guess the obvious first question is, it's been a couple of very interesting games for you leading up to the game you just played. How comforting was it to not have an easy game, but a little less drama than your past two matches?
Yeah, we definitely needed that, as did our families. They've been sending texts about gray hairs and whatnot. So it was nice too. That was, I guess, we've showed glimpses of what we can do. I think we just haven't been able to put it together for 10 ends. So that was the first time we came out and played really solid right from the first end, and we got a little lead there, and we're able to hold on to it this game, which made life a little easier.
So I'm a little curious. Obviously, you had like about an hour and a half between the end of that last game, which was unbelievable, and then have to kind of refocus yourselves to play another game. How easy or how difficult is that in an event like this?
Yeah, that's the toughest part, is especially when you come off a win like that, where we were walking back to the hotel to grab a bite to eat quick, and the adrenaline's just pumping. Like, you can just feel it. So the biggest thing was, getting a little bit of food. We only had just over an hour break, so we did that, and we had a little debrief, and just, okay, boys, it's super easy to come out a little flat after a huge win like that, and we couldn't afford to do that. So everyone regrouped, and we came out, and I know everyone's pretty tired right now, more so mentally than anything. Those come back, get ahead, give up the lead, come back and get it. It takes a lot out of you, a lot of emotion. It's like an emotional roller coaster, I guess. So, it was great to come out, put together probably our best game for sure, as a squad, and it definitely gives us some momentum heading towards tomorrow.
Did Matty even touch the ground on the walk back to the hotel after that last game? Or?
Yeah, he's moonwalking the whole way back, basically. No, it was what a shot. It's
gotta be fun to watch, eh? When you're sweeping it, or while you're in the house holding the broom, it's gotta be fun. Just even better when it's a player on your team doing it. But a shot like that is incredible.
It's so much fun playing under a guy like that. Like you always have a chance with the kind of shots he can make, right? So we got a few in the rings, and luckily the angles worked out. And like I said, there's no one else I'd rather have throwing the last shot, and he came through again for us, which was pretty sweet.
And thanks to our friend Frank from the From the Hack podcast for those questions to Braeden Moskowy. And on the other side of that Saskatchewan Northwest Territories game was, of course, Jamie Koe. We saw a little bit of a shakeup with his lineup there, after losing the game this morning. In the 7th end, I think he switched out, and David Aho skipped while Jamie slipped down to 3rd, and they brought their spare in for the 2nd position. This team is fairly clearly like a young team that's playing with Jamie Koe and trying to gain experience. And I asked Jamie Koe about that after the game.
So I just wanted to talk to you about bringing sort of the future of Northwest Territories curling with you to the last couple of years. What exactly are you hoping to show them by bringing them to this kind of an event for the future?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, last year my old team was kind of done, and I thought I was kind of done too. And these guys asked me to do something with them, whether that be coaching them or playing with them. And I thought about it a while and figured I'd probably could do a little better with playing with them to try to pass the torch, if you will. I don't know how many years I got left. So we got the young guys in there, and last year I got David in at skip in a game, and against Nunavut, and we won the game. So I've been trying to transition a little bit and get them as much Brier experience as I can before I am done, so they're ready for the future, and they've been here, and hopefully they can be successful.
Right on. And the decision today was just about rest and getting David some skipping?
Yeah, it's more just getting David some skipping time. I think he's going to be the future skip in the Northwest Territories, so it's a matter of getting him some confidence and getting him out there with as many reps as we can as a skip. So that's what that was all about, for sure.
And so do you have any specific goals for the rest of the week here? I know 0-4 is pretty tough, but...
Yeah, 0-4 is pretty tough. We're playing some pretty good teams. We're struggling, but they're playing well. So we have Yukon and New Brunswick and Ontario ahead. So we're still going to hang tough and hopefully get a couple wins before we're done here.
Perfect. All right, thanks a lot.
Yeah, no worries.
So elsewhere in those games from this morning and this afternoon, Team Wildcard continued to roll. They beat British Columbia in the afternoon 10-5. Really put a whooping on and beat Northwest Territories 6-2. In the morning. In that game this afternoon against BC, Mike McEwen made a pretty nice double to give them 4. A couple of missed execution there from Team BC, and that really set the tone for the rest of the game. Team Nunavut came out and tried pretty hard. Covered the spread actually against Team Nova Scotia in the afternoon, but lost 7-3. We saw Prince Edward Island for the first time on TV this morning, and they had pretty rough game that was switched from the TV game pretty quickly. It was a 11-2 loss to Team Nova Scotia, but they bounced back in the afternoon session and won 7-4 over Quebec. Quebec had a pretty a shot to win. He had a draw and just came up a little bit light and curled too much. So, not an ideal ending for Quebec. They still had the crowd behind them, but they were looking to get some more from that one. But they did then, in the morning session, they were able to get their first win on the board with the 7-4 victory against Nunavut. Nothing else is really sticking out to me, and since I'm alone, it's kind of lonely here. So I think I'll wrap it up here. I'll just say real quick, looking at Pool A, the loss by Ontario brings them down to 3-1, but if they take care of business tomorrow, they'll still be okay. Team Wildcard leading there at 4-0. I'm maybe a bit surprised, but the top 4 teams are Wildcard, Ontario, Saskatchewan, Canada, sort of the 4 that we would think would be at the top. James Grattan, of course, as you mentioned there, they've got an eye to the playoffs still. Tomorrow morning, they're back on the ice against BC for their only game of the day, and then they'll finish with Northwest Territories and Wildcard on Wednesday. So if they can get a victory against BC and be sitting 3-2 going into that Northwest Territories game, they've got a real shot to finish 4-3 and at least get themselves a tiebreaker. For the rest of the action over in Pool B, Alberta's that train's chugging along at 4-0. Newfoundland, Labrador 3-1. Nova Scotia may be a bit of a surprise at 3-1. They've still got the sort of 3 big boys to play. 3 of the 4 in Alberta, Northern Ont, and Manitoba. So, tomorrow's going to be a pretty decisive game for them, or a day for them, rather. PEI, Manitoba sitting at 2-2, and Northern Ontario 1-3. This is got to be the surprise so far of the Bonspiel. To be fair, they've played really well, but that loss to Manitoba yesterday on the measure, really not so great. They got thumped pretty good by Alberta, as we saw on that opening Saturday night. And then tonight's game, to play as well as they did, shooting 86% as a team, and you get the loss to Brad Gushu, it's going to be tough. They're going to come back tomorrow with 2 games against Quebec and Nova Scotia, and they'll finish out with Nunavut on Wednesday afternoon, rather. I think, the odds are pretty good for them to get those 3, and they're going to need them. Otherwise, they'll likely not advance. So the thing about this team is that once they do advance, if they advance at 4-3, history has shown that they're going to need to stay at 3 losses in order to make the playoffs. And as good as the teams coming over from the other pool will be, this team is one of the teams that can beat anyone in the world. So looking at the likes of Wildcard, Ontario, Kevin Koe, and Team Canada, Brad Jacobs has beaten all of these teams before and can do it again. So you can't count them out yet. But I think we're all a little surprised they got to 3 this fast. So that's all I've got for now. I think tomorrow will be pretty fun. Again, I'm planning to be there most of the day. Tweeted a lot today, and it kind of took it out of me. So I might watch the morning game from bed. But don't worry, I'll be keeping you up to date with all that's going on over on the Twitter at Game of Stones Pod. I'm at Scott Likes TV. Send Sean your well wishes there at Dr. Shawnee Fever on Twitter. You can get in touch with us anytime. If you would like something answered of the players, let me know and I'll do my best to get in there. I answered a question today about the 10th end strategy from Jason Gunnlaugson, so stuff like that I'm always happy to talk about. And I guess that's all from Kingston, so until I talk to you next, keep your broom on the ice and don't dump that intern.
Make the final.